Well, here's a question for you. Why would someone buy Russian film that expired decades ago, then wait weeks for it to arrive from Moscow, and then go out and shoot pictures without even knowing if this film is going to work? For the adventure, of course. I've been in New Orleans. I ordered several rolls of expired Svema film from Russia. Now, this is medium format film. I purchased it from a nice person in Moscow, and they sent it right out to me, which, with customs and all the other stuff that you've got to go through, that meant waiting about 6 weeks to receive it. But when I did receive it, I was pretty excited, and this is what I got. Now, I decided to try the 64-speed black and white film first. The idea was to go out and shoot this roll, see how things worked out, develop it at home. It's black and white, I can do that at home, and then just scan the negs with my digital camera, which is what I usually do when I shoot black and white. A couple of notes about this film. It expired in 1992. So, I definitely was not sure that it was even going to work. I had to give it a try, though. Also, something strange I noticed was that there was a slight sticky or tacky feel to the film when I was loading it on the film reels after I shot it and were getting ready to develop it. You put your film and your reels in your loading bag, and it's this light-proof bag that you stick your arms in. You've already got your developing tank in there and your film reels, and so as I was loading it, I noticed it just felt a little sticky or tacky, and I wondered if that was just the nature of the film. I don't know, maybe the film was just breaking down over time. That was kind of my thought, and that made me feel even a little more nervous as to whether or not the time I spent shooting this, was that time wasted? Of course, when you're experimenting, is any time wasted? I mean, the whole idea is to try things out, right? And just to see what happens. Okay, when I went out to downtown Austin, I exposed the film as it was rated. So I figured right around ASA, ISO, whatever you want to call it, speed 64. I shot it at that speed. I wasn't sure exactly how to develop it, so I referenced Digital Truth's massive dev chart. I'll put a link to that down below. It's very handy. And they actually had the specs or the recommendations for how to develop this particular film. And I just went by that. Now, after development and the film dried, this is what the negatives actually look like. And they look very different from Kodak film or Ilford film, which are the films that I usually use. It's a really shiny surface on one side. It almost reminds me of audio tape, like the kind that they use on those big reels in recording studios. That's what this looks like to me. So just on first glance, I was not too thrilled with what the negatives looked like. They looked like maybe something that wasn't so good because it was, almost 30 years expired. But I figured once I scanned them and got them into my computer so I could mess around with them, maybe I'd be able to salvage some. Yeah, expired in 1992. I know that sounds pretty rough, but I have one here that expired in 1973. That's this one right here, the Foto 250. Definitely expired in 1973. That is crazy. Now, that makes me want to try this one next. So I bet you're curious to see how these pictures turned out. Let's go ahead and jump on my computer and take a quick look. All right, here's the first shot in the roll that we shot that day, and this is downtown Austin. We're starting here at the City Hall building, which is a beautiful building. It's got some kind of a crazy kind of architecture, but unfortunately you can't make out most of what the Austin City Hall building looks like here because of this crazy gunk all over I guess that's gunk. I don't know what it is. It's just the degradation of, the way that the film was holding on to its whatever's in there, silver bromide or whatever it is. Just all those molecules that suspend in the film seem to be clumping around in weird ways, or Possibly it was because of trying to develop this film after it being living in its box for so long. It just some of that development wouldn't really take hold. In any event, yeah, I scanned these negs using my Sony a7 III. And I'm looking at the settings right now. I used ISO 640. The f-stop was 9, and the shutter speed was 1/40th of a second. I usually use a self-timer for that because I know I'm just going to bump that thing around. If I try to press the shutter button at such a slow shutter speed, it's not going to turn out well. I used a short macro extension tube that is a full-frame camera, and so I just wanted to, get each of the frames in the negative as big as I could in the actual digital camera's frame as I scanned it. Anyway, so here is that first shot. You can see this effect here looks a little weird, looks a little crazy. I mean, it almost looks like I threw a texture over it in Photoshop trying to get some cool effect, but no, this is just how it came out right out of the camera. I'm going to go to this next shot, and this is a shadow pattern under a pavilion there in front of the building. Looks really, really awesome, but it just doesn't look like that here. It's just too dark. I didn't even adjust my exposure for this one. That's part of the problem, but the rest of the problem is that there's too much detail possibly in this shot. Too many little squares and shadow patterns and things like that. Looks beautiful. It would have looked beautiful if I had taken a photo of this with a better film or my digital camera, but this is what I have. Now, this was an intersection shot. It's one of those things where you kind of look at a scene, and with the naked eye, it just doesn't look all that impressive. But you look down into your viewfinder, in this case into the Bronica, you've got that nice little ground screen, and you look down at it and you go, wow, this looks pretty intriguing. Well, this is what I got out of this roll. Again, I should have taken an actual picture of this with, I'm not gonna beat myself up for this. This scene will still be there if I want to go down and take another go at it with some. I'd say I'd shoot this in color next time. All right, so here's the Driscoll. Now, the Driscoll is one of the most beautiful buildings in downtown Austin. It's on 6th Street. I think there are rumors that it's haunted. Now, if so, this is definitely the film that might help a ghost hunter gather evidence. And I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute. But yeah, this is I don't know, this is kind of an interesting shot. Look at this guy up here. Wow. Moving on, another building on 6th Street. Well, there's actually two buildings. And you see how this one here, where you've got some good contrast, you've got some really bright spots here, turns out better than these. This building I think is a little red or rust colored or something. It's turned out better. This side of the building turned out better, and that is a big clue as to how one might want to use this film in the future. Again, here's some contrast because you had some really light colors against a dark brick. What's interesting about these, as I look back on these pictures here, when I was a kid roaming around the streets downtown Austin, punk rock kid, I really never took notice of how cool these old buildings were. There's this advice that if you live anywhere near a city and you're in the city at any point and you're walking around the streets, take a look up. And that's good advice because there's some cool stuff. You just lift your gaze. Anyway, so we go back to, okay, we're here now. Another really interesting scene, but look, it doesn't look that interesting here because you have all of this detail just knocked out by this crazy gunky noise. And if I go into develop mode here and mess around with it a little bit, I might be able to pull some other detail out. But you see, getting from one takes away from the other, and here's more contrast. There's only so much you can do to pull stuff out of a negative that is just layered with stuff like this. Anyway, so that's why I said before, if you're out there experimenting with outdated or possibly damaged film, bring along another camera loaded with good film or a digital camera just in case you find a picture that you don't want to miss. All right, now I'm going to prepare you. Try to prepare you in advance. Get ready for this. This is going to freak you out a little bit. This might scare you. If you're faint of heart, to stop the video now. But It's just, here it is. It's this picture of a church. And remember how I said that this film is kind of, it's got some strange effects to it. It's and might be suitable for whatever reason for ghost hunters to use and gather evidence. Man, I don't know if this old film is itself haunted. Can you haunt a roll of film over time? I don't know, but wow, check this out. That looks, wow. That wasn't there. You look at this church with the naked eye, that wasn't there. Obviously, it's just the patterns created by, these clumps here. But man, I don't know. I see things. I see dead people. Look at that. Ooh. Ooh. Look at that. That looks almost like Casper trying to escape out of some windows here. Or maybe something a little more creepy. Just lots of these weird little faces. But yeah, that kind of jumped out at me. Anyway, now that I'm creeped out a little bit, I want to move on. And here was the next one. Again, lots of contrast, but in this case, it kind of works. I don't know. I still see a face here, but we're going to move past that. We're going to ignore that stuff. And yeah, that was an interesting, I don't know, it looked interesting to me on the street, but not that much. But I thought, sometimes these pictures work out. Now we have a shot of this is a famous Paramount on Congress Avenue. I've been to a few shows here. Cool place. But anyway, so there's their sign. There's another sign. I like old signs. I like old signs like this. And I just said, hey, let me frame up an old sign against this big, corporate sign like next door. And then I shot a picture of some cranes. Austin, especially downtown, lots of stuff being built, constantly building, new buildings, high rises. Anyway, so this is a crane. And this is another crane. I believe they were both in motion that day, which I guess takes a lot of coordination. The picture would have looked a lot better. Maybe. I mean, it depends on your taste. This is kind of intriguing. It's, I don't know. Is this the Jackson Pollock version of photograph? Maybe. No, because you have some discernible detail here. I don't know. You might like it. You might not like it. But in any event, this is what I got. We're going to start here in number 1 again and just quickly zoom through. So that looks like something here too. Man, I'm seeing all sorts of stuff in this film. I don't know what my favorite is. I don't know if I have a favorite. Maybe I don't like any of these. This looks okay, maybe. This is kind of cool. This might be my favorite, although it does creep me out. There you go. That's what the Svema Foto 64 roll of film looks like. Expired, what did I say, 93, something like that. And developed according to whatever the current recommendations are at the Massive Dev Chart. All right, so what did I learn shooting this first roll from this assortment of old Russian expired film? The one thing I learned is that next time I go out and shoot, make sure that really everything I shoot has some really strong contrast. Like in this set with the picture of the Driscoll and the picture of the church, those had pretty good contrast, big bright building in front of maybe a slightly darker sky. That was good. So I think that I'm going to shoot scenes featuring nice, strong contrast like that. Contrast that will just punch through the, all the noise or whatever that is all over the negatives, that gunk. Another thing I'm going to do is make sure that I carry along a backup, because I saw a few scenes there that day that I thought would make really good shots. I didn't shoot them on anything else. I didn't have a film camera backup, with some actual usable film that, didn't expire 20, 30 years ago. And I didn't use my digital camera to capture these shots. I was just kind of in a rush. I wanted to get these shots done. I was excited to see what kind of results I would get. And so yeah, definitely, if you're going to experiment with film that you're not quite sure, that you're a little dubious about whether or not it's even going to work, you might run across a scene that you do not want to miss capturing. It might be the only chance that you get to get the shot. Take along a backup. Now, one thing I'd really like to know is if any of you guys out there have had any recent experience with any of this old Svema film, you know, this expired stuff. Maybe you've ordered some stuff off of eBay like I did. I would love to see your results. You know, if you've tried to develop it in a different way than what's mentioned on the massive dev chart, or, whatever you've done, what are your results? What's your experience with this old film? I know a lot of you won't have tried this film and maybe you're not even interested in it, but maybe, for those of you who have, let's compare notes, okay? Just leave something in the comments below. We'll talk about, your results versus my results. I'm thinking of actually trying this color roll. Now, I don't know how I'd actually even get this developed. I could shoot it, mess around with it. It's, what is this? Let's say 50 speed. Yeah, 50 ASA. Looks like it expired in 92. Wow, I really don't know. Maybe I can send this down to my local lab and see what happens after I take a few shots. That would be an interesting video too, maybe. Hey guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and click that like button. Give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and click subscribe and leave me a comment. I think that's about all I got for you today, guys. See you next time.